Yoki Ganyo homies, Wade Willis here for my playthrough of Umineko. This is Chapter 4, Part 20. This is the finale. I'm recording this after I filmed the episode, and I was blown away by it. It is fantastic. A lot of weird stuff going on, and it set up the answers arcs so well that I can't wait to start going in on that. And yeah, guys, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already subscribed. And yeah, hope you enjoy. We got Detective Battler on the case here. Jessica had been called into her own room on the second floor of the mansion. The door of the room was locked, but that wasn't a problem at all since I had the master key. Inside the room, it was horrible. But after the dining hall, I was used to corpses, so I built up a bit of an immunity. The phone receiver was loose and dangling. Had she been killed while still on the phone with me? Jessica was leaning against the wall next to it, with half of her head split open. As far as I could tell by glancing at the scene, it looked as though she'd been killed while on the phone. In that case, had the culprit been right there before her eyes? I hadn't gotten the impression that when listening to Jessica's voice over the phone. I'm pretty sure Jessica said, "They got me." It's probably best to assume that she had already received a fatal wound at the time of the phone call. That's right, she also said this.
バトラーが来た時には、私は頭を半分ぶちまけた死体だよ。
Very suspicious, everyone. Yes, that's what she said. From what I could tell by looking at Jessica's corpse, there were no wounds to her other than damage to her head. Could she have had an injury serious enough to make her prepared for death and then died halfway through the phone call? It looks like the way they make it look too, guys, and I'm going to use my mouse, I almost never do this. It looks like there's a gunshot thing there, gunshot splatter. To be honest, if it was a bludgeoning, it wouldn't look like that. I've watched a decent amount of crime things. Again, I don't work for CSI, but I don't know if that's a red herring or what. But that is not a bludgeoning thing. There'd be more splatter everywhere. But the way she talked on the phone made it think that she'd escaped for the time being. You shouldn't be able to have a casual conversation over the phone if the culprit's right before your eyes, unless you've already accepted your death, though. So did the culprit come in partway through the phone call and kill Jessica? No, that can't be right. After all, this room was locked. Wait, that doesn't tell me anything. If the culprit stole a master key from one of the victims, locking the door would be meaningless. Yes, that is very true. But she had no external wounds other than her head. In that case, should I assume the fatal wound she was prepared to die from was the actual external wound that damaged her head were two different things? I don't know. And that both of them were made to the same part of the body? Now that is a decent, that could be a hint. In other words, Jessica was struck severely to the head and received an incredibly bad wound. Then she called me and either lost her consciousness or died while on the phone. Then the culprit came and damaged her head again, something like that. After being called to this room, Jessica was attacked by the culprit and received a serious injury. Then the culprit thought she had been killed and went away for the time being. But Jessica miraculously started breathing again and called me with what would become her dying message. The culprit realized that they'd failed to kill her and rushed back to deliver the final blow after Jessica fell unconscious for the massive blood loss. Was it Jessica on the phone with you, though, is my real question. That seems to add up more or less. And for Beatrice, thinking having Jessica call Battler was probably the best thing that could have happened to her, because he can kind of confirm it's like too convenient for her because it makes things seem more kind of crazy. That's just my opinion. Except for how Jessica was able to accurately predict the nature of that final blow. Yes, I agree. And then there was one more thing that bugged me about the phone call from Jessica. Jessica had said this.
庄司兄さんもダメだった。ありゃ、即死だ。
She said it almost as though she'd witnessed George being killed. But while you certainly could see the rose garden from the window in Jessica's room, you couldn't even see the roof of the arbor where George had been summoned. It was very far away. Add on the fact that it was probably the night of the typhoon. It's very hard to imagine that she was able to witness everything that happened by the arbor from this window. And more than anything else, Jessica left before George. So she shouldn't have known that George's test took the place by the arbor. Why did Jessica know that George had been killed? I'm starting to get vibes that there's doubles of everyone. Also, during my search of the entire mansion, I found Kyrie's corpse as well. Because if you have... Let's say you have doppelgangers of everyone, and they give them the same name. It's still the same person, right? Or that's what they're almost saying. And they kind of gave a hint with it, with the stuff with Battler and like, oh, someone else was killed. He has the same name as a person. The real Battler. I don't know. I felt like that was kind of a possible hint. It was one of the old guest rooms at the back of the first floor. In the past, before the construction of the guest house, the relatives had spent the night in these. Kyrie's situation matched Jessica's perfectly. She'd probably been killed during her phone call with me. The receiver was hanging untidily, and Kyrie lay crumpled in that corner. But the way she had been killed was very different from Jessica. Her head wasn't smashed. Instead, a stake with an occult design was buried into her forehead. It was so gruesome, so I pulled it out. After pulling it, I realized this might get me into trouble with the police later, so a little too late I set it down by Kyrie's side. The tip of the shard was stained with enough blood that it must have been penetrated fully into the brain. I didn't know what kind of metal it was made of, but it was about as heavy as a paperweight. Certainly if you stabbed all out with something like this, it might cause a terrible wound. I probably knew what that stake meant. It was one of those. The style of killing from the fourth twilight onwards in the witch's epitaph. It's probably gouge with the stake and kill thing. However, a human skull is very firm. No matter how much someone mustered their strength, could it really have been pierced so neatly? No. By my reasoning, this stake wasn't the cause of death, but it had just been used to damage the corpse after death. She was probably killed with a gun or something like George, and the stake had been struck into the hole left by the gun. Thinking of it that way makes it easier to accept. But, was Kyrie really killed with a gun? She said on the phone, even though she was holed up inside the locked room, Kyrie was being attacked. In fact, this room had been locked. Also, she mentioned that a golden thread or something flying in and attacking her. In fact, there were 4 places around Kyrie's corpse with holes that could have been caused by some kind of attack. But, a gold thread attacked her? Through the keyhole? I looked at the door from Kyrie's perspective. If it had been one of those old keyholes you see in mystery movies, where you could peek through the other side, then it would have clearly been possible to stick something through it. But, even though the doors of this mansion were old-fashioned, the locks were familiar, average cylinder shape you would see in a normal house. In other words, they weren't constructed in a way that would let you penetrate through them. So no matter how thin an object you might try to stick through the keyhole, it's unthinkable that something penetrated through from the outside and attacked. A cylinder lock, and a keyhole. But despite that, Kyrie definitely said something like a golden thread had flown in through the keyhole, spun around while aiming for it and attacked her. A golden thread attacked through a keyhole. I couldn't understand what it meant at all. But even so, Kyrie probably predicted that I wouldn't be able to understand all this. And it wasn't just Kyrie. Jessica said it over the phone too. No, since the very beginning, from the time we talked with Goda and Kumasawa on the phone from Uncle Krause's group. Everyone had said the same consistent thing. Grandfather summoned witches and demons and is killing people with magic. They've been shown that right before their eyes. These weren't tricks or fakes. There was no choice but to believe it. With one voice, they all said that. When the mysterious mystery woman calling herself Beatrice appeared, even I had pretty much believed that she was a real witch and might start summoning great goat monsters right and left. However, after being left alone for a whole day, my feelings of tension completely faded. I was now able to think something so stupid definitely couldn't come true. Did they lose their heads in a little extraordinary situation where their lives were exposed to danger, and mistakenly think that a witch was attacking them with magic? But multiple people gave the same kind of testimony, and on top of that, none of their opinions conflicted each other. If it had just been a single statement, I'd be able to suspect that they didn't see what they thought they saw. But doing that now is pretty difficult. Perfect for Beatrice. Then, right next to the back door, I found Uncle Kraus with his head half smashed. Even though he escaped the dungeon of Kumodorian and somehow made it this far by a secret underground passage, he had been killed. Buried into the gruesome cross-section of his half-crushed head was a stake with an occult design, like the one that had been buried in Kyrie's forehead. And in this situation, it was very hard to imagine that the stake was the weapon used. He had been killed with a powerful gun like the six in the dining hall, and after death had been jabbed with a stake like Kyrie. I wonder if the golden threads that Kyrie spoke of attacked Uncle Kraus too. Does there exist some kind of tool like an endoscope? It's very thin but can be moved at will, and that can also attack people? No way. I've never heard of anything like that. Maybe Dr. Octopus game. But even so, if this fact had been revealed to one of the relatives, maybe they would say I wouldn't put it past grandfather to make it. Since I can't deny the existence of a golden thread X that can be moved at will and attack people, I can either accept that this mysterious weapon exists, or else I'll have to accept this was a murder committed with magic. Or you could just say they didn't know what they saw and they were on drugs. To find the next corpse, I had to go through the back door and search around outside a bit. Behind the mansion, in the wild-grown bushes that were almost swallowed up by the forest, there was something like an old well. Right next to it were Dr. Nancho and Shannon's corpses. Both corpses had the head smashed, and though they weren't stuck in, the stakes were lying right next to each damaged head. Each corpse was atrocious, but having to look directly at Shannon's lovely face, which had been half blown away, was very painful. Then there was the well. I had heard inside that secret underground passage to the mysterious mansion Kumodorian. This time I began to think that Beatrice and her accomplices might have used this underground passage and left for Kumodorian. Even though there had apparently been at least 10 of them, I hadn't seen a trace of anyone. It seemed very likely that they'd already escaped to a different location. Then there's the typhoon. They can't go out to sea. It goes for the same for the forest. There's no way they could traverse such a deep, uncultivated forest on foot. In that case, they only have one place to go, the mysterious hidden mansion Kumodorian, through the secret underground passage at the bottom of the well. By this time I had entirely lost my fear of being killed if I happened to come across the enemy. Don't fuck with me. This time I'll storm into your mansion. The old well had a firm cover on it. The cover had an iron grill. The gaps between the bars were perhaps 20 centimeters across. You could peer inside, but it wasn't really something that a human could pass through. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought it anything more than simple cover to prevent falls. But from what Kyrie had told me, I knew that its purpose was to prevent intruders from entering the secret underground passage in its depths. But the cover was extremely firm and rigid. No matter how much I pushed or pulled, I couldn't even get close to opening it. I couldn't find an obvious lock. It might be sealed by some mechanism. but no matter how much I investigated, I couldn't find anything to release it. The biggest piece of information Kirie had tried to give me, gambling her final moments, was the underground passage in this well.
こんな二程度で俺を阻めると思うんじゃねえぜ。こいつをぶち壊してやる。その道具を探そう。
I had an idea. After all, I'd seen various tools in the gardening shed when we locked up Goda and Kumasawa. But the shutter of the gardening shed was locked. On top of that, the key was with Goda, who was dead. In other words, the gardening shed was a closed room. There's no way to open it from the outside. In that case, I gotta break the shutter. There has to be a tool for that somewhere. Kinda feels like going in circles here. Then, while searching for that, I learned that the source of the stench that had permeated the mansion this whole time was in the underground boiler room. Interesting. The boiler room was dimly lit, humid, smelled horrible, and on top of that was incredibly creepy. But there were several large tools there, and I managed to find a fire hatchet and some massive wire cutters. And grandfather's corpse. Or is it his corpse? No, strictly speaking, I should say that I found a burnt corpse of a person who was probably grandfather. There we go. Someone's corpse who had been stuffed in the blazing fires of the boiler. However, by coincidence, I was able to notice the number of toes on the corpse. Both the feet had 6 toes. That's right. I think I heard it from Dad some time ago. Something about grandfather having polydactyly with extra toes. According to an old Ushiromiya family tradition, it seemed those with extra fingers and toes had some kind of good fortune and were treated as a good omen. And because of that, grandfather was selected to be the successor or something. But I wonder if I can be certain this is grandfather's body just for the number of toes. After all, grandfather was supposed to be the leader of a group of the culprits. I didn't have a clue why he gets stuffed into a boiler in a place like that and die. A mysterious corpse, burning and spitting out a terrible stench amid the flames. If it really was grandfather, did that mean that the leader of the group of culprits was a grandfather, Beatrice after all? Grandfather was used because he was convenient, and was then thrown away? Unfortunately, it didn't look like I'd given a chance to hear grandfather's side of the story. Now that I have obtained the tool, I thought about rushing in to take on the cover to the well. But I decided to break the shutter of the gardening shed first. I had plenty of time to kill anyways. I figured I should check on the condition of Goda and Kumasawa's corpses. I hit the shutter with a hatchet, breaking into it. Stuck the wire cutter into the crack, and scissored around opening a hole. Then faced Goda and Kumasawa's corpses once more. As a result, I learned a new fact. First, they had not died by being hung by the neck. Both of their feet were solidly on the floor. Both of their foreheads were signs they'd been shot with a gun. The loop seemed longer than a normal noose. On top of that, the length was different on each of theirs to match the height and weight of each person. In other words, the lengths had been adjusted so that both Goda, who was tall, and Kumasawa, who was short, had their feet solidly but barely on the ground. Also, while the ropes carried both of their weights as their heads lolled, both of them had some slack below their knees. This meant that they'd stood up with these loops around their necks, and that there would be some extra length. In other words, these loops wouldn't have been great for hanging people. The direct cause of death was probably a shot to the head. It was gruesome. Their insides were still dripping out from those gaping holes, staining their faces deep red. It's probably best to assume that they were then hung, pulled up, and left exposed like that. If they'd been shot with a gun, they would probably have been lying down on the floor. If that had been the cause, you wouldn't have been able to tell that they were dead, even if you peeked through the window. The mountain of stuff would have gotten in the way, so they'd been lying down, and they would have been hidden. To make the deaths of those two known to the rest of us, who couldn't go inside, they would have had to hang them like this, making it visible from the outside. Was this done to get back at us for thinking those two would have surely been saved if we left the key with them? I wonder where the shutter key we gave Goda, which should have ensured their safety, is now. That key was in the pocket of his trousers. The gardening shed key had been kindly left there, and even the plate was attached. In other words, the gardening shed had been a closed room after all. And that gave rise to another question. Because this can't be explained by hanging. If they didn't commit suicide, then those nooses were set up by the culprit. It might have been impossible to shoot them through the window, but it's unthinkable that someone could have tied 2 loops to the beam from the outside. And furthermore, there's no way they could have lifted up the heavy corpses. In other words, to do all this, they would have had to go inside, but the key was in Goda's pocket and the shutter had been locked. In other words, the gardening shed had been a closed room, or so we think. Goda had said there was only one key to this shutter, but it is possible that there was a copy, and that the culprit was in possession of it. We were allowed to theorize that they were actually a duplicate of the gardening house store key, and that Goda just didn't know about it, then this isn't even a closed room. But why is it that despite that fact, that almost all the other corpses were found shot to death and almost completely alone? It's just these corpses were intentionally hoisted up. I couldn't help but feel something a bit odd about that. After this, if we assume that the mystery corpse of the boiler was grandfather's, then the deaths of the 16 people have been confirmed. There were 18 people on this island. I'm here and there are 16 corpses. Cannon's corpse is the only one I haven't been able to confirm. Oh yeah, where the hell is he? Oh, he's in the underground thing, right? According to Kiria, he had been killed while climbing out of the well and had fallen down into it. So if the well closed up like this, it's impossible to check. I tried shining a flashlight through the bars down there, down into the darkness at the depths of the well, but it seemed that the jet black darkness had no intention of showing me depths with the light of that level. It looked like I'd have to break the bars after all. Using the hatchets and things I dragged from the boiler room and the gardening shed, I tried to break the cover of the well. But the metal bars were extremely sturdy and breaking them wasn't easy. I hit them with the hatchet over and over until my hands started feeling weird. I eventually gave up breaking them. It's impossible. If they were at least wood, I might have been able to break them. But this metal? They don't have like a hacksaw or something? That's right, there's no way you could slice through metal bars like butter with a human strength. I can't even begin to understand the story about how Cannon cut through the metal bars. I heard that a light red, like laser beam grew out of his arm, and that he sliced through the metal bars like he was cutting through butter. Yeah, all you need is a lightsaber, dude. It's not complicated. Come on. Cutting through the metal bars like butter? And what's with the red laser beam? Does that mean he secretly had a burner on him or something? Well, that's also... I didn't even think of that. The thing you use for welding? Couldn't you use that? Still, what kind of laser could cut through metal bars like butter? It almost sounds like the kind of laser beam you find in those robot anime I'd love as a kid, doesn't it? Does something like that actually exist? And how did cannons get that laser beam? It's definitely not a laser beam. No matter how much I went to ask him, he's already been killed. Plus, even his corpse is down in the depths of the well beyond this cover. If Cannon could slice through metal bars, I'm sure he could handle this metal cover in a single swing. It just feels like the closed room Goda was locked in a while ago holding a key. Only one person could open the door and they're locked inside. If only I had that power of cannons, I'd be able to do something about this cover myself. Just who is Cannon? He couldn't really be a non-human being capable of using strange power, right? Kiria told me to believe in witches, and I even met an insane woman calling herself one. Could Cannon possibly be a human on the witch's side? Or else the culprit? What the heck? Am I gonna start treating him like the culprit just because I can't find his corpse?
It's not the worst. 疑わしきは白だとほざいたのは誰だったよ。よかろう。カノンに全ての犯行を押し付けて人間犯人説にされてはかなわぬ。わらわが赤にて保証す。カノンは死亡している。 キリエたち5人の中で一番最初に死亡した。つまりは9人目の犠牲者というわけだ。
死体がない以上、カノン君が死亡しているとは断言できない。
わらわが赤で囁いたところで駒であるそなたには届かぬ。だがそなたに届いたよな。
It reached me and I'm annoyed by it. At a glance, there was a mass murder due to something strange that could only be thought of as magic. Gold threads attacked through keyholes. No, we even have a testimony that something gold flew around the dining hall when the first 6 people died. The 2 might have been the same weapon. Then there was a closed room murder of the garden shed, and the laser beam that could cut metal bars. And that wasn't all. There was much, much more like a group of goat monsters. The story of the witch who could create pitfalls just by snapping her fingers, like rabbit-like demons who had fired golden threads. I think there was more, but each part was all screwed up. Now, in my opinion, and I don't think that this is necessarily correct, but everything, everyone's testimonies could be explained by someone being, them being given a hallucinogen, like, you mean a ton of LSD, and the feeling like they're falling. They could have used like ketamine or something that's like a dissociative that also will like knock you out but make you feel, people feel like they're falling and stuff. So I feel like a lot of it you could justify with them being drugged. That's my opinion. I feel like that's the... And for Beatrice, if you're like drugging the people, they're going to be seeing wild things. Like, you could just have someone with a... Like, you could just have these random people with these fake goat heads, but because they're on a drug, they'll think it's real. And, like, doing certain things they can think is magic. And I don't think he's ever used that as a thing. I couldn't possibly accept it and was forced to be suspicious that it was some kind of trick or mistake. But why in the world had everyone spoken with one voice, saying the exact same thing without contradictions in their testimony? Now, that support... I'm coming up with multiple theories, because she's going to have to take both of them out. Then there's a theory that everyone has, like, a double or doppelganger. And if everyone's using the same name, like... Because it's a duplicate, you're not counting that as a different person. There's Maria's mysterious death. Why Jessica knew that George had been killed. The mysterious burnt corpse that I couldn't confirm really belonged to the damn geezer. And more and more. All stuff I don't get. I tilted the wine bottle up and gulped. I don't have a clue what's going on. After dinner last night, the kids were chased out and told to go back to the guest house. And then there was the massacre in the dining hall. This is, I think I talked about this before. The whole Salem witch trials. People, well, the reason why they think a lot of it happened was because they had ergot poisoning. Which would make sense that if they did something like that for this, with it dealing with witches. So, I don't know. That's just something to think about. But yeah, the ergot poisoning, I believe that's the name of the thing. It's like this fungus. And they found it, I think it was like in a lot of their food. And this will make people like kind of go crazy and think they saw things they didn't see. Kyrie and the rest were dropped through the pitfalls and captured. Then Jessica and George were called out to take the test or whatever and killed. Even though Kirie's group was able to escape the dungeon somehow, all of them got killed in the end. In the very, very end, Maria was killed, leaving me all alone. In short, I did nothing except stay locked up in the guest house. During that time, a huge incident occurred and ended. What can I call it except incomprehensible? I don't have a clue anymore.
もう俺はただの食欲魔人なんだぜ。俺だけ生き残らせるつもりかよ。とっとと姿を現して殺しに来いってんだ。もう面倒だからこっちからは探さねえぞ。そっちから正体を見せやがるってんだ。俺は逃げも隠れもしねえぞ。矢でも鉄砲でも持ってきやがれ。
I haven't gotten any sleep since yesterday, so I'm incredibly sleepy. You want to kill me? Go ahead. I decided to return to the guest house and boldly rest in a bed. When I exited the kitchen and passed through the lobby, that portrait of the witch came to view. The big clock did too. It was almost exactly midnight. Then the sound of the bell rang out, proclaiming it was midnight. That midnight had arrived. As I listened, I looked up at Beatrice's portrait. Exactly 24 hours ago I met you. What were you trying to say? And where did you go? Just who in the world are you, Golden Witch Beatrice? I haven't solved a single one of your riddles surrounding you. Show yourself and fight me. Then the witch showed herself. Like a guest of honor finally appearing, she showed herself on the landing at the top of that big staircase.
ようやく姿を現しやがったな。丸一日。退屈させられてたところだぞ。
そうだ。丸一日を与えた。人間側の権利行使は十分か。
ああ、退屈だったんでな。存分にやらせてもらったぜ。
エンジェは良い駒であった。
エンジェの名をお前が口にするんじゃね
え。あれは奇跡によって現れ、自らを生贄にして、そなたに絶対の
エンジェの名を口にするな。
あの無残な死は、あの死を見なければ、そなたは本気にならない。エンジェの幸薄き未来を自覚しなければ、そなたに勝利の執念は生まれない。
エンジェの名を口にするなと言っている。
つまりは、必要な生贄だったというわけ。そうでなくては、そなたにわらわを殺すほどの怒りは生まれない。わらわとそなたの拮抗が崩せない。ベルンカステル共鳴。これは駒ではないわ。切り札と呼ぶがふさわしい。駒はどれほど活躍しようと、盤上を離れることはない。しかし切り札は、どんな力を発揮しようとも、切れば確実に捨てられる。エンジェは、そなたにとって実に良き切り札だったのだ。
エンジェの名を口にするんじゃな。
I still think we're gonna hook up. As Battler's angry roar, Beto finally stopped talking.
俺はな、こんなところで遊んでる暇はもう一切ねえんだ。引き分けすらも園長を待たせてる。俺はな、お前を打ち破り、家族を連れて家に帰る。てめえと魔女ごっこで遊んでる暇は1秒たりともありはしない。
なら
I think you got about 100 more hours of me playing this thing at least.
分かっている。
ああ、お前をぶっ倒す。魔女も魔法も幻想も妄想も全て俺がぶっ飛ばす。さあ、おっ始めようぜ。もう二度とごまかさせない。ゲーム再開だぜ。お前という嘘っぱちを追う魔女のベールを俺が引き裂いてやる。
素直に一言、わらわを殺してやると言えばよい。
ああ、その言葉をお望みなら、俺が聞いてやるお前の望みで、最初で最後のものだ。
感謝する。
お前を。
ならばよし、始めようぞバトラ。さあ、魔女狩りの時間だ。
Witch Hunt is also...
わらわを追ってみろ。追い詰めてみろ。殺してみろ。妹の最後がそなたに何を与えたのか。それをわらわに見せてみよ。
上等だ
Battler's cry burned the world with a white light, and if you open your eyes, amidst the darkness, the two of them could be seen in a rose garden.
先手はどちらから？
俺だ。
潔し。
The rose garden beautiful petals danced. The color of those rose petals was red. Did the fact that they faced each other in the beautiful rose garden prove or make a red to claim single truth? That must be why the roses are red. I totally effed that up. But in the language of flowers, roses represent passion, not truth. The flower for truth is a forget-me-not. And that flower is blue.
俺の青き真実だ。全てをうがつ。全ての一番最初から、一番最初のゲームから始めるぜ。
Absolutely no way he gets.
よかろう。来い。
行くぜ。すでに宣言済みだが、こいつは前回のゲームの南條先生の殺人だけじゃないぜ。一番最初からのあらゆるゲームのあらゆる場面を切り裂ける。
Then the other thing is that the furniture of the like the servants don't count as people because they're furniture and they're not human. That's the only other thing, that there were actually other people committing these crimes. So
後宮金蔵はすでに死亡している。よって島の本当の人数は17人。そこに未知の人物 X が加わることで18人となっている。この人物 X の存在の過程によって17人全員にアリバイがあっても犯行は可能になる。
yeah, he didn't see his grandpa, right?
これにより人間の数18人を満たしつつにもかかわらず、意見18人全員にアリバイがあっても犯人 X の存在と犯行は可
Yeah,
能
you
に
do
なる。
have the grandfather being dead thing. You can break through all the episodes of the murders in episode 1 by supposing that an unknown person X. Furthermore, it's possible to explain the mystery of Kinzo's evaporation from the closed room sealed by the receipt by making the bold assumption that Kinzo wasn't there in the first place. Unless Beto counters this with a red truth, the illusion of the witch from episode 1 has been completely smashed. This blue truth is valid. The wedge of blue truth that Battler had thrown stabbed right through Beto's left top foot. Was it red? Pouring from there, protests being made of her red truth? Beto shut one of her eyes tight, enduring the unbearable pain of the blue truth that had denied her.
悪くない。だが まだまだわらわは否定されてはおらぬ。この程度では足りぬわ。続くゲームではそれだけで説明できる謎
That's
がある。
true.
どの謎だ？
第2のゲームの終盤でジョージがゴーダとシャノンを引き連れ夏日の部屋に立てこもり殺された。夏日の部屋を解錠した鍵は室内に閉じ込められ、残る全ての解錠可能な鍵はローザの手にあった。犯人 X が存在しようとも密室構築は不可能なはず。
The blue wedge that pierced Beato shook. She was resisting, fighting to pull it out.
いや、俺の青き真実は揺るがない。犯人 X がマスターキーを入手していれば、あれは密室でも何でもないんだ。
いや、入手は不可能だぞ。マスターキー全てはローザが管理した。
だがローザおばさんが共犯であったなら何の意味もない。ローザおばさんは犯人 X に何らかの方法で鍵を渡し密室殺人を幇助した。そしてその後同様の方法で鍵を回収したんだ。甘いぜベアート。こんなのは当時の俺もすでに推理している。
そうであったな。
The wedge had been gradually losing its sparkle, had seemed as though it was able to be pulled out. Regained its strong blue again, thanks to Battler's additional blue truth, and dug into Beato again eating her foot. Beato let out a cry of anguish at that pain.
まだだ。まだ答えぬ。まだだ。まだだ。
さらに続けて第3のゲームだ。6連結の連鎖密室。ローザおばさんとマリアの殺人、親父たちのホールでの死亡、クラウスおじさんと夏日おばさんの殺人。エヴァおばさんを犯人に仮定することで説明可能だ。
There is one loophole.
これは当時すでに論破済み。それに対しお前がエヴァを通して出題してきた最後の南條先生殺しも18人目の未知の人物 X で説明可能。これで第3のゲームまで全て打ち破ったぞ。
I'm fairly certain there is.
反論はある。
I think there is one counter. Okay.
この程度で答えはせぬわ。ならばゲストハウスからのジョージの失踪はどう説明するというのか。赤き真実を追加しよう。ジョージはゲストハウスの階段を降りてはおらぬ、窓から飛び去ったのだ。
I mean, you could jump out the window. But she didn't say flew out the window in red. I'm pretty sure the windows were open, weren't they? In the final stage of the third game, George suddenly vanished from the second floor of the guest house. Ava, who had been on the first floor, claimed that no one had come down the stairs. But because of Blue Truth, George could have stuck down the first floor and escaped while Ava was busy carrying out Kraus and Natsui's corpses outside. By adding additional red truth, Beato denied that possibility. To go outside without going down the staircase on the first floor, he would have had to leave by a window. Oh. Interesting. But all the windows have been locked from the inside. There we go.
だからなんだお前の言葉通りだぞ。
Well, she could have noticed that it was unlocked and locked it again, right?
窓から飛び去ったんだろ。下へ飛び降りても芝生じゃわからないし、あの大雨だ。多少の痕跡なんて消えちまう。
It's true.
赤き真実を繰り返し、外部へ通ずる窓も扉も全て内側より施錠されて
Yeah,
いた。
but when were they locked?
しかもそれらの施錠は全て外
That
側か
again,
ら
that
は
doesn't
不可能。
matter.
ジョージには施錠する術はない。
青き真実を繰り返す。当時の俺も言っているぜ。ならばジョージの兄貴が窓より脱出後、誰かがそれを施錠すればいい。何も難しいことはない。
この程度ではあがけぬか、あがけぬか。
The fourth one gets way more. That's where I like start coming up with the double thing and people hallucinating. Ato couldn't remove the blue wedge that was buried into her foot. The fake witch was burned more and more by that forceful blue.
第3のゲームまでの全てにおいて青き真実は未だ揺るがない。ならお前が魔女であることを証明する唯一のゲームは今回の
わらわが赤き真実にて反撃していない以上、そういうことになる。この度のゲームでのみ魔女を証明せねばなるまいな。よかろう、存分に来るがよ。
食堂の6人殺しについて不審な点はない。18人目の X が銃を乱射してみんなを殺した。落とし穴については実際に落とし穴が本当に隠されていた可能性もキリエさんの仮説である。瞬時に混沌させる毒矢の発射装置 X の過程でも説明可能。ジョージの兄貴ジェシカ、そして地下牢から脱出したメンバーの殺害も食堂と同じで銃によるもの。不審な点はない。だが分かってるぜ。
Yeah, I would
反
gather.
撃があるんだ
She's
ろ。
gonna say there's no pitfalls, right?
来いよ。
そなたの最大の刃である18人目の X はそう来ることはわらわも分かっていた。だから金蔵を書斎より出した。その金蔵を親族会議
Maybe
の
Kinzo
全員
killed
が
them all.
迎えたぞ。
That all you have to say is the culprit is Kinzo.
親族会議に居合わせた全員が金蔵の存在を認めた。
That acknowledging the presence of Kinzo doesn't mean that Kinzo was there.
そうだな。だがじいさまはずっと視線をさまよって寝込んでいた重病人ってことになってるぜ。やつれてて別人に見えちまってもみんな気にしないかもな。俺はこう返す。そのじいさまは別人の替え玉だ。
Okay, so I think my double theory is gonna come into.
親族たちがじいさまと見間違えた別人だ。
ならばわらわはこう返す。すべての人物は後宮金蔵を見間違わない。
No person.
いかなる変装であったとしても後宮金蔵を見間違わない。
Yeah, but she never said it was Kinzo.
ならばこう返す。お前は第一のゲーム時では5本以上存在することになっていたマスターキーの本数を第2のゲーム時に赤き真実で5本と宣言することで以後のゲームの設定変更を行っている。同じことで第4のゲームにおいて金蔵の生死の設定が変更されている可能性がある。よって第4のゲームの金蔵の存在をもってそれ以前のゲームでの金蔵の存在を証明することにはならない。よって食堂での6人殺しはじいさまが自ら執行したと仮定しても
Yeah.
何の矛盾も生じない。
ならばこう返そうぞ。4つのゲーム開始時の金蔵の静止設定は全て同一である。第4のゲームのみ設定が異なることはない。
副賞要求。各ゲームの開始時に金蔵は生存している。
副賞拒否。
Okay.
答えぬよバトル。わらわはそなたに望まれて赤き真実を答えはせぬ。
くそじじいね。我が最愛の魔女ベアトリーチェを守るために体を張ってやがるって
He
のか。
certainly is. I wouldn't be surprised if he killed himself to make her win. Swaying that damn Swaying, that damn geezer came into view. Heh, he's trying to be some kind of knight blocking the path between me and Beto?
バトラよ、お前にこのわしが超えられるかな。至らせぬ、至らせはせぬよ。黄金の魔女の高みにはな。お前の浅はかな推理など私一人を超えることもできぬわ。ひねい。
Keen's jet black cape spread as though it would swallow the world, becoming a stout snout of a black dragon that came at me, trying to swallow me in one gulp. Faced with that black dragon's roar, I calmed my breathing and closed my eyes lightly.
お前なぞ一息に飲み込んでくれるわ。消え去れ、未熟者め。
黙りな、死に損ないの亡霊め。
ほう、わしを亡霊呼ばわり、あくまでもわしはすでに死んでおるとする仮説を貫くか。それがお前の命取り。第4のゲームの第1の番にて闇に飲み込まれて消え去るがよい。
The black dragon's vast mouth, its snout, its fangs swallowed Battler whole. In that instant, Battler suddenly opened his eyes.
ありがとうよ、ベアトリーチェ。お前の第3のゲームが俺の反撃の足がかりとなる。
何？
あばよ、クソじじい。こいつでお別れだぜ。俺は金蔵死亡説が第4のゲームでも主張できる根拠として以下の仮説を提唱する。
よかろう、存分に来るがよい。我が末裔よ。
行くぜ、クソじじい。金蔵の名は後宮家当主の称号として引き継がれているという仮説だ。後宮金蔵はすでに死んでいる。そしてその名を誰かが継承した。
Damn. I knew they would do something with the names. They gave a big hint in this by saying Battler, there was someone else with his name.
それにより親族会議に居合わせた全員が金蔵の存在を認めた。じい様の変装をする必要さえもないのさ。一同が新しい金蔵を認めたのだから、よって見間違えるわけもない。以上の仮説が否定されない限り、お前が死んでいるという事実は変わらない。これでとどめだぜ、クソじじい。お前に復讐要求だ。全人物の中で異なる複数の名前を持つ人物は存在しない。
There we go.
できるな。
There we go.
安らかに眠りな。クソじじい。
I love rest in peace, damn geezer. That's awesome.
感謝しろよ。お前やっと死ねたんだぜ。こいつが陰道だ。食らってくたばりな。後宮金蔵はすでに死亡している。そうさ、あんたは気の毒だよな。その死体が見つかる場合、いつも丸焼けだ。それは死後が経過している死体であることを
And the
悟
fact
ら
that
れ
it
ないための
smelled
工
so
作なの
bad,
さ。
that's the other thing. I feel like a body that was just burning normally wouldn't, if it was, I don't know how to say this in not a creepy way, but like a fresh body wouldn't, I don't think it would smell as horrible as this one smelled, where it was already decaying and stuff probably.
そしてその名を誰かが受け継いだ。以上の仮説でてめえは死亡しているにもかかわらず、金蔵は親族会議に登場することができる。どうだよ、これだ、チェックメイトだ。
Several dozen blue stakes bore into Kinzo's ghost. Their terrible destructive power wouldn't let the ghost recover again. What a boss.
金蔵、今日までありがとう。安らかに。そなたとの日々は忘れない。
Dispersing along with the shadow of the black dragon as gold flower petals scattered, Ushiromi Kinzo became a gold-colored cyclone and disappeared. Even after death, he fought for the sake of the woman he loved. There's no doubting that your love and madness were a real thing.
バトラ
ー。恨むな。死者は眠らせろ。起こすな。次こそ。これでお前も最後だ。
Beato still couldn't pull out the blue wedge pierced on her foot. She realized that she was on the verge of death. She's gonna find some way out of this. We have freaking 4 more episodes in the answers thing, right? I've got along with you a whole bunch.
お前の遊び相手としての義理は十分果たしたはずだ。だが、そろそろお片付けの時間だぜ。家族揃っておいとまさせてもらうぜ。
ならば殺せ。ならばわらわを殺してみせよ。逃げも隠れもせぬ。今や避けることもかなわぬわ。来い！後ろ宮バトラー！
おう！金蔵死亡説による18人目の X により残り全てを貫く。第4のゲームにおけるジョージの兄貴とジェシカの死も X が地下牢から逃げて殺された5人も園芸倉庫の2人も最後のマリアも全て18人目の X で説明できる。何もおかしなことはない。以上にて全てのゲームにおける犯人の説明を人間にて完了する。ベアトリーチェ、これだ。チェックメイトだ。
Beatrice, who couldn't dodge, had several blue stakes driven into her and skewered. Beato grabbed at them, trying to pull them out somehow.
食らっちまった。痛えよ。こりゃ死ぬな。こいつを引き抜かなきゃ死んじまう。痛いのは嫌だ。辛いのは嫌だ。
She had sad life. With both hands, Beato firmly grasped one of the blue stakes. Naturally, the power of the witch-denying blue truth burned her hands. Unable to even hide her tears at the pain, Beato howled and tried to pull the stake out with all her might.
これが抜けなきゃ。
She's gonna have to flip it around somehow. We have so much of the story left.
これが最後の反撃。ならバトラー、我が魔法の数々をどう説明するのか。一番最初に登場したのは第2のゲームにおいて、わらわがマリアのカボチャのマシュマロを直してやった時だ。この時ローザはその魔法を確かに目撃している。
Certainly at the time, Rosa witnessed gold butterflies gathering and fixing the marshmallow by the miracle of magic.
ローザ一人の目撃では信憑性がないであろう。だからわらわはその目撃者をそれこそが 今回のゲームよ。我が眷属たちの召喚、そして魔法による虐殺、それらのすべてを大勢の人間たちに目撃させた。それこそが我が魔法の存在する証明。これをどう説明するのか。後ろ宮バトラー。
ステイルメイト。魔法があるから魔法はある。そういう論法にはできないってのが、俺たちのブラウン管裁判のルールのはずだぜ。
そうだったな。
誰が何人魔法を目撃しようとも、それは魔法の存在の証明にはならない。俺はお前が見せてきたすべての魔法の存在するしないの遺憾に関わらず、そのすべてを無視して、それは俺の不可侵の権利である。違ったか。
At those words, the blue stakes let out even a brighter light, knocking my hands away.
やはり抜けぬか。
As Battler is now, even if I pull up a witness for each individual bit of magic and demanded an explanation, he'd probably use some kind of move to deny all of them. Not just the magic with the marshmallow I showed Rosa, but all the miracles of magic. So I can no longer even claim to be a witch without questioning him about something like how a marshmallow is fixed. I'm in such an inferior position that I must fight over such trivialities?
わらわは無理かもしれぬ。わかっている。なればいつか破れる日が来るのは当然のこと。わらわはバトラに敗れるためだけに今日までを戦ってきたというのか。勝てるかもしれないと始めたゲームだった。簡単には勝てなくても無限に繰り返すゲームの中でいつかは奇跡が起こると信じてた。何しろわらわには絶対に勝つという絶対の意志がある。しかし今やその奇跡は完全に失われた。そして絶対の意志はバトラに宿り、私には万一の奇跡も絶対にない。
So is another witch gonna show up? Something has to happen.
奇跡も絶対もないが正しいのか。
Interesting, like the miracle and certainty is like the kind of lambda delta versus burn cassell.
勝
The
利
yin
は
and
な
the yang almost.
引き分けによる終了もない唯一許された決着。敗北を与えられるまで永遠と抗うだけのゲーム。そうさ、バトラに殺されるためだけに戦っている。
I looked into Battler's eyes. That which reflected inside them wasn't me. The figures of the little sister waiting for his return and the family he had to bring back were reflected in those eyes. To him, my existence is already, if not even an individual, obviously, from the very beginning. He has been trying to deny the individual that I am.
前回のゲームは面白かったな。ちょっと騙しただけだったけど、ほんのわずかな間だけでも分かり合えたような感じになって面白かったな。そうだよ、あそこで手を打っておけばよかったんだよ。 バトラがコロッと騙されたまま、永遠に騙し続けてればよかったんだ。でも、ダメなんだよな。あれじゃ、本当の勝ちじゃないんだよな。
これだ。チェックメイトか。ベアトリーチェ。
Beato had been run through with several blue stakes, skewered over and over to the ground while still standing. Because of that, she wasn't even able to fall over. And still, looking up into the sky was sewn in place. That tragic form might have been a fitting end for the cruel witch who had endlessly toyed with 18 people's lives and who had killed constantly for hundreds of thousands of years. Gently, as though someone was mourning over something, rain began to fall. Amid that rain, Beato was soaked and crucified.
終わりなのか。ベアト。
She's like, it's only just the beginning, bitch.
グーの音も出ぬわ。
まだだろ。お前はこの程度で終わる女じゃねえだろ。
無茶を言う。この姿がどう見たら終わっていないように見えるのか。早くとどめを刺せよ。言っちまえよ、お前の青き真実で。以上により魔女は存在しないって言っちまえ。その一撃で私の息の根を止めてしまえ。
ダメだな。
ほう、わらわにこれ以上。すでに決着はついておろうに。
立てよ。俺たちの殴り合いはまだ終わってない。
まだとな。
お前のそれは負けじゃない。もうやめたと投了しているだけだ。
いいではないかよ。投了で。それでそなたの勝ち。とっとと妹のところへ帰るがいい。わらわ
Something's going on that's making her want to lose or leave,
打ち捨てていけ。
which I'm assuming is like the whole answers thing is going to be about.
逃げない。そしてお前を逃がさないとな。お前は何者
Yeah,
だ。
this isn't the real Beatrice, right? Maybe?
そして一体何が望みだったんだ。
それが知りたくば、そなたの18番でも試せばよ
Chessboard?
い。いいではないか。ただの妄想、幻想。それでいいではないか。
全然ダメだぜ。俺はお前を。俺はお前をこのまま逃がしてなるもんか。お前をうやむやにしたまま幻想の暗闇に逃げ帰らせはしない。打ち破る。完全にな。だから立て。弱々しいふりなんかするな。お前はまだなんてか隠してる。俺にはわかる。
なぜおとなしく見逃してくれぬのか。
親父を、お袋を、そしてエンゼを、いとこのみんなや親族のみんなを、そして使用人のみんなを、お前はあれだけもてあそんで殺した。その非道を俺は絶対に忘れない。許さない。俺の肩にはよ、まだエンジェの、俺はお前の非道を、だからそんなことで 逃がさない。
Battler's eyes burn with the flames of hatred. The time had long since passed during which pitiful behavior would have earned his compassion. After being tricked once, Battler will never sympathize with me again.
狼と羊のパズルどころか、これじゃ狼少年だな。どうすればいいんだよ、どうすれば。負けを認めぬためだけに無限に戦うのも、無限の魔女にふさわしき無限の拷問か。バトラに勝利を与えぬために無限に嫌がらせを繰り返すのもまた無限の魔女なのか。悲しい、こんなのが無限の魔法なのか。もう嫌だ。魔女たちに無限に玩具にされるなんてもう。
Yeah, that's like...
嫌だ。勝ちはなく引き分け終了もならば、わらわを解放してくれる結末は魔女の道に落ちた時から、悪魔と契約をしたその日から、末路は悲劇であると約束されていたではないか。
どうした？黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェ。六軒島の支配者ならば最後もそれにふさわしい貫禄を見せてみろ。
Lightning. The world was smashed with white. Fitting last moments for the ruler of Rokenjima. Ha ha ha. Still pierced by the blue stakes, Beato faced the rainy sky and let out a cry of laughter. Then she slowly raised her face and stared at Battler.
愚か者め、そなたの健闘をたたえ、勝ちを譲ってやろうと思ったのに慢心したな。
それは譲られるものじゃねえ。お前から奪い取るものだ。お前だってそうだろうが。俺が魔女はいてもいいかななんて言い出す、そんな甘っちょろい勝ち方が納得できなかったから、前回はわざとああして最後にぶっ壊してくれたんだろうが。そうさ、俺は前回お前に一度情けをもらってたんじゃねえか。だからその借りをこれで返す。俺の仇、俺の黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェ。
バカバカが愚か者が二度とチャンスがあると思うな。
When Beato yelled, the blue stakes that had pierced her chest blew to bits and disappeared. However, the blue wedge that had pierced her foot in the very beginning did not vanish.
まだ抜けてないぜ。18人目の X の青き真実が抜けていない。
そなたの副賞要求の一つに応じる。そなたの推理通り、全ゲームの開始時に金蔵はすでに死んでいる。しかしならばつまりは一人を抜かせばよいこと。わらわはこれまでこの島には19人以上の人間は存在しないと宣言してきた。それを金蔵の分一人減らす。この島には18人以上の人間は存在しない。以上とはつまり18人目を含める。つまり18人目の X は存在しない。これは全ゲームに共通することである。
ら見ろ。やっぱりまだ、とんでもねえ奥の手を隠してやがったぜ。17人しか人間のいない島が18人と偽られてきた。それが1人減って17人になり、ようやく正しい数になったってわけだ。これで、お前をぶち抜いていたくさびが抜かれたな。戦いは、ゼロから仕切り直しってわけだ。
The blue wedge that had sewn Beto into place broke apart. There was no longer anything piercing her. The scars on her body had disappeared completely. There stood, just as Battler had hoped for, the figure of the majestic golden witch who ruled Rokunjima.
さあ来いバトラー。もう一度最初からだ。すべてについて青き真実で打ち抜いてみよ。わらわももはや遊ばぬ。逃げもせぬ。隠れもせぬ。そなたが不甲斐ないならばこの勝負、この場にて決着してくれようぞ。わらわの譲り勝利にて妥協しなかったことを永遠に後悔させてくれる。さあ、第一のゲームからだ。
おう！第1のゲーム。最初の園芸倉庫で見つかった親族6人の殺人に不審な点はない。アリバイのない誰にでも犯行は可能だった。
Well, it doesn't. If there's only 17 people, then Quinta was already dead. The whole paper thing doesn't matter, right?
有効だ。続けるぞ。次のエヴァ夫婦の密室殺人はどうか。チェーンまでかかった密室であったぞ。赤き真実を追加する。
Did they kill each other?
二人は他殺である。密室構築後に片方を殺害の後に自殺したのではない。
I think they both killed each other at the same time.
また殺人は執行者、犠牲者が共に同室して行われた。執行者が室外から殺害する手段は存在しない。
犯人にはアリバイのない人間を想定する。それは死者だ。最初の6人の死体の中には顔面粉砕による身元不明死体が含まれる。これが実は偽装死体で、犠牲者のふりをして姿をくらました犯人 X が、そして犯人は密室殺人構築後ベッドの下に隠れ、俺たち全員をやり過ごしたんだ。
よかろう、次だ。ボイラー室に至ったカノンが殺されたな。赤き真実を追加する。すべての生存者にアリバイがある。さらに死者も含めようぞ。つまり島のいかなる人間にも死者にもカノンは殺せなかった。
誰にも殺せないなら自分で殺したということはあるかもな。ならカノン君は自殺かもしれない。復讐要求。カノン君は自殺ではない。
カノンは自殺ではない。
Oh, okay.
重ねるぜ。復讐要求。
There we go. Yeah, I was gonna say it's possibly an accident.
復讐を拒否する。
その拒否で他殺を認めることも可能だが、お前はすでに赤で誰にも殺せなかったと宣言している。つまり他殺ではないんだ。これは第3のゲームの連鎖密室と同じなのさ。カノン君は自殺でも他殺でもない理由で死亡したんだ。状況は不明だが事故死というわけさ。胸に杭がぶち込まれて死んでしまうような、どのようなドジを踏んで事故死に至ったかについての説明は悪魔の証明により説明拒否。
ほうほう、悪魔の力を身につけたそなたは今や敵なしだな。有効であるぞ。ならばその後の客間にての源氏、男女、 熊沢の3名の殺人はどうか。無論同室していたマリアは殺していないぞ。そしてもちろん3人は他殺だ。
殺人を実行したのは身元不明死体で姿をくらました犯人 X で説明で、そもそもあの3人の顔面も粉砕されていた。どれかが替え玉死体の可能性は十分にある。
身元不明死体についてその身元を全て保証する。すなわち替え玉トリックは存在しない。
ならば相打ち殺人で説明できる。3人はそれぞれに銃を持って時計回りに突きつけ、その後マリアがその銃を回収して隠した。
Maria would do that
これなら
too.
どうだ。
なんという暴論。気に入った。ならば最後の夏日は赤き真実を追加。夏日は他殺である。身元不明死体は一切なく、生存者も全員がアリバイがある。
トラップ X による間接殺人で説明できる。夏日おばさんの銃に細工がされてたんだ。あの銃は構えて撃った人間のちょうど眉間に弾をくれてやるように作られた罠の銃だったと。
夏日の額に埋まりし銃弾は夏日の銃から放たれたものではない。
夏日おばさんは内容不明の手紙によりおびき出された可能性がある。そしてそして特定の時刻に特定の場所に立つように強いられて、あらかじめ設置してあった銃を利用したトラップ X により殺害されたんだ。
素晴らしい。そなたの暴論はもはや心地よくすらある。
That one's insane.
敬意を表し第一のゲームをそなたに譲ろうぞ。感服したわ。
The instant Beto acknowledged her defeat in the first game, the stick of the blue truth once again pierced her chest, letting out a terrible sound. Well, now with the 17, it makes it like significantly more difficult, I think, of these other ones.
答えぬは来い。第2のゲームだ。
Beto just barely pulled out the stakes that had pierced her chest. But even though there was no hole left behind, she still seemed to be burying a deep wound that was letting out a massive amount of blood, and she was tormented by an equally fierce pain. But Beto grinned, grinding her teeth, and pushed for the next game to start. But I won't feel sympathy for her. Just by her existing there, we've been killed and harassed over and over. Oh. An age has been buried with a future of isolation.
そうとも、わらわがここにいてただ笑うだけでも永遠の地獄は続く。そなたを妹に返しはしない。妹は帰らぬ家族に1000年の間泣き続ければよい。
くしょうが。情けも容赦もしねえぜ。まずは最初の事件だ。6人が殺された礼拝堂での密室殺人については当時の俺がすでにカンパしている。マリアの鍵を何者かが密かに拝借し、事件終了後に密かにマリアのカバンに戻した。
That's what I've been thinking.
マリアの鍵はマリア受領後から翌日のローザ開封の瞬間まで誰の手にも渡っていない。
Well, then Maria did it right.
ジジイの書斎と同じ構造で礼拝堂、つまり事件前に開錠しておいて扉が閉まりきらないように石でも挟んでおいた。そして鍵をマリアに預けた。施錠はオートのため鍵は必要なかったとの仮説もあり得る。
金蔵の書斎以外にオートロックの扉は存在しない。
扉は犠牲者たちが内側から閉めたんだ。6人の中に犯人がいて5人を殺し 死んだふりをしていた。
6人は発見時にすでに全員死亡していた。全員が他殺だ。6人は全員が純粋な犠牲者であり、相互の殺人には関与しない。相打ち殺人は存在しない。
熊沢さんをはじめ、当時アリバイがない人間が存在した。そんな誰かが6人を殺し、内側に隠れていたと仮定すれば問題ない。
I like.
あの礼拝堂には誰も隠れていな
It's
かった。
it's a bit hard for me to remember some of like 1 and 2 because I did them like months ago.
よってその引きこもり密室は通用しない。
Isn't there a window open
ど
or
うした
something?
よ後ろ宮バートラー。そう第2のゲームからは甘くないぜ。
There was a thundering exchange of red and blue truth. The stakes and wedges of blue truth I sent were attacked one after another, and Beto cut them down one after another with her red truth, her red treasured sword, knocking them down. But the blood she lost for the first game was probably serious, and this intense exercise was putting even a greater strain on her. I could also see her breath grow ragged. This is why I can't hold back now. I'll corner that witch. This time, I'll break through her.
まだだぜ。ああ、ダメだ。全然ダメだ。俺のへりくつは終わっちゃいねえぜ。
Couldn't someone have done a trap?
ならばこれはどうだ。彼らに与えられた飲食物に小型爆弾が入っていて、腹の中で爆発した。つまりトラップ X による犯行の可能性。気づかずに飲み込んで腹をぶちまけるような爆弾の詳細については悪魔の証明。説明拒否。
It's actually not a bad bullshit one to come up with.
なんだよそりゃ。小型爆弾。
Technically, that is possible, right? You could, I mean, even then, if you had a timer or something, but Beato failed to knock down the blue wedge as it flew at the angle like a breaking pitch. It let out a loud thunk and gouged itself deep in her left shoulder. However, even as the breaking pitch hit her, her laughter didn't seem to be stopping. Yeah, I get it. Even I think the theory is pretty screwed up.
好きなだけ笑いやがれ。文句があるのか。
なし。その暴論や心地よし。
See, that's not one. I thought the trap thing, but I would not think the
次なるジェシカとカノン
I
の
would
密
not
室
think
は
the food bomb thing, but
問題ない。使用人の誰かが犯人であればマスターキーを使える。密室ですらない。
その後使用人室でカノンらしき謎の人物が襲いかかり、南條と熊沢が殺されたな。カノンの死亡はあの時刻以前に赤で宣言済みだった。ならばあのカノンは何者だという。
someone could use their body when they're doing this stuff.
カノン君の死亡は赤で宣言済みならば生きているわけがない。よって襲われた彼らがカノン君と誤認するような何者かの変装の可能性がある。
彼らは異なる人物をカノンと誤認することは絶対にない。
ならば金蔵の名の世襲と同じにカノンの名が世襲された可能性がある。カノン君が殺され別の人物がその名を受け継ぎ彼らを襲ったと仮定できる。
That name thing came, I knew it would become really important. I'm actually kind of proud of myself for noticing that because I've missed a million other things. A sound like a watermelon being squashed rang out, and Blue Wedge was buried deep into Beata's left flank. Maybe it hit a bad place, since it seemed to be really effective. After leaning over and moaning for a while, she laughed it off as though trying to make it seem like no big deal. Yeah, I get it. That must have hurt a lot.
またしてもこともなげに人間の誰かを犯人に仕立ててきやがったぜ。ゲーム盤上では口が裂けても言えぬことを実にシャーシャーとのたまう。しかし有効だ。その暴言心地よし。心地よいぞ。これは痛みではない、心地よさだ。
Oh shoot, sorry guys. But the wound remained, and she continued to be tormented by the fierce pain.
いいのか？続けていくぜ。第2のゲームの最後の殺人。夏日おばさんの部屋で死んだ3人についての青き真実は、赤で反論はあるか？なければ第2のゲームも俺のものだ。
ああ、ないぞ。そのようなさまつで戦うのもつまらない。くれてやる。第2のゲームだぞ。貴様にくれてやるわ。
I love how like 6 hours ago I thought there was only an hour left. I honestly didn't expect us to get like this in depth of like just because I know there's so much left to the story. I thought that it was not going to be. I mean, because this has been like 2 hours of him investigating things and then arguing back and forth, basically, which I'm fine with. I just didn't expect to have this much. The instant she acknowledged her loss in the second game, 2 blue stakes gouged through Beato's chest at this time. The witch's lungs were gouged, as were her intestines. Her face twisted in anguish. Her body twisted as she gasped in pain.
痛えのか？
痛い？いやいや、くすぐったいくらいよ。全身を細切れにされてくず肉の山にされたお前の妹に比べればな。お前もくず肉にしてやるぞ。兄弟仲良く混ぜて合いびきにしてくれるわ。
Them are fighting words.
ぶち殺してやる。お前を同じ細切れにして。次だ。第3のゲームだ。いつまでへばってやがる。てめえを地獄に叩き落としてやるのはこれからだ。
無論よ、これくらいでへばるものか。そうとも、まだまだこれからよ。さあ、第3のゲームを始めようぞ。まずは本来ならこの密室はそなたが当時にカンパしている。しかしそなたは金蔵を殺してしまった。
At the time I theorized that Gramps was the culprit, and that after killing the 5 stringing the keys across each room, he constructed his own closed room in the boiler room. And that there he died in an accident while carrying out some kind of scheme burning to death in the boiler. But now that I've declared Gramps is already dead, so I've denied my own theory, ironically enough. However,
問題ない。ジジイ以外にも犯行可能な人間は大勢いる。
since
親族会議中だった大人たちが全員グルで犯行に及んだとさえ言い切れる。
she's gonna say that
マスターキー5本は全て5人の使用人の懐よりそれぞれ発見。個別の鍵は死体の傍らの封筒の中に。つまり連鎖密室に関わる全ての鍵が連鎖密室内に閉じ込められていたわけだ。ドアの隙間だの窓の隙間だの通気口だの、そんなところを使って密室外から鍵を戻すことなどできるぞ。
なら毒ガスで殺したんだ。鍵は通らなくてもガスなら通るぜ。
oh
密室の外から殺人を実行したんだ。
彼ら全員には致命傷となった重曹と思わしき傷跡があったぞ。室外からの殺害は不可能だぞ。さらに赤を重ねようぞ。金蔵を除く5人の殺人の際、殺人者は必ず同室していた。自殺者がいないことは当時に赤で宣言済みだ。
犯人は全員をそれぞれの部屋で殺害後連鎖密室を構築した。しかし最後の部屋の鍵だけはどうしても密室内に戻せない。だが戻すことはできたぜ。死体の第一発見者が鍵を見つけたふりをして誰かの死体のポケットから取り出して見せればいいからだ。
She couldn't fully block the retort of that blue stake. Beato was pushed back by the blue wedges that were unleashed on her, one after another. Finally failed to block one and once again took a severe wound. She howled in pain. She pulled out a blue wedge that had pierced her right arm. Beato's entire body had been torn apart and pierced with blue wedges, stakes, and blades over and over again. And now she was totally covered in blood. But even so, Beato grinned, cackling as though this was amusing.
エンジェに親を連れ戻して帰宅すると約束した男がどの口で親を犯人にした説を語るというのか。いいぜ、それでもいいんだぜ。家族で仲良く大量殺人に手を染めて決して落ちぬ血にまみれながらエンジェのところに帰れよ。それでこそ魔女の島からの生還者にお似合いだぜ。クズ肉エンジェにぴったりだ。
黙りやがれ。てめえを殺せ。バラバラにして殺せ。命乞いの必要はなぜ。絶対にこの手で最悪の死を与えてやる。
Damn, player.
ああ、そなたならできるだろうよ。千年の果てに残虐の限りを尽くしきったわらわにそれに見合う最後を与えてくれるだろうよ。ああ、それは痛いの辛いのか、それともくすぐったい。これくらいで答えるかよ。来いよ後ろ宮バトラー、まだ謎は残ってるぜ。
Beato had already countered my first powerful move, the 18th person X, by making the number of people on the island 17. But just limiting the number of people to 17 didn't overturn the theory that Aunt Ava was the culprit. I can crush the murders, most of the murders in the third game this way. Blood dripped from all over the body of the Golden Witch. I cornered her, this time thoroughly without mercy. This isn't a game played to decide who wins or who loses. Yeah, we aren't playing. Every time I spend time fighting like this, delays my trip home. In her isolation, Angel will continue to have her heart torn apart by loneliness and sadness. I have to go back to Ainge as fast as I can.
ボロボロだな。虫の息ってやつか。
まだまだこれくらい。こそばよいわ。
いらねえようだな、容赦。
元よりそのつもりもなかろう。
存分に行くぜ。
そうせよ。逆の立場だった時、だからそなたもそのチャンスがあったならそうするべきであろうが。
I know the end with Nanjo will probably make it a little bit
援助を呼んで
difficult, right?
今度は獅子を引きちぎって槍に刺して炙り焼きにしちまう
Jeez,
ぜ。
Beatrice?
黙れ。もう二度と俺の家族も
I
親
mean,
族
she's
も
just doing this to get him to win, though. It
そして
seems
使
like
用人のみんなも
to give him the fire to
お
push
前の
through.
おもちゃにはさせねえぜ。俺はすでに第4のゲームの謎も全て青き真実で打ち破って残る謎は第3のゲームの一番最後、南條先生の殺人
Yeah,
だけ
that's
だぜ。
the.
おやわらわも風前の灯火であるな。
She coughed violently, spitting up blood. Her insides had been punched through so many times. It was only natural.
ということは、この南條先生殺しの謎だけが、お前が魔女。
そうなるな。これを破られたなら、わらわは全ての謎をそなたの真実のいずれかを新しき赤き真実で反論するか、新しき謎を提示しないか。
She's definitely gonna do that.
わらわは
追い詰められて風前の灯火って感じには見えねえぜ。まだ何か隠し玉を持ってやがるな。
さてどうかな。わらわはもはや1000年の長すぎる生涯にあいている。その果てに巡り合ったそなたという公的種によって生涯を閉じるのも悪くないとそなたならやってくれよ。頼むよ。殺してくれよ。殺してばっかりでさ、殺された試しがねえんだよ。お前ら18人を幾百と殺してはきたけれど、殺された試しは一度もねえから、一回くらいは経験してみてんだよ。
It was a graceless show of boldness, unchanged from before. But blood dripped from her mouth. Her once beautiful dress was covered with holes. And blood poured out from all over her body, making her physical appearance stand in sharp contrast to her attitude. Maybe the shot she'd taken in the flank was still tormenting her. She was still pressing down on it unconsciously without a trace of grace. But I've got no time for pity. As long as I feel sympathy for this witch, my family and I won't be released from this place. Until I defeat her, we won't be able to go home. In the outside world, it may be possible for even enemies to understand each other when circumstances change. But pure evil does exist. Evil that brings misfortune just by existing, and is to be spared no compromise. Just by its continued existence alone, it's evil.
お前を哀れには思わない。お前が俺たちの誰にも憐れまなかったように。
そうともさ、お前らなんてゲームの駒だぜ。毎回最初の6人は誰を殺そうかな、次の2人はどう殺そうかな、もっともっとグロい殺し方はねえかなって考えるのは最高に楽しいぜ。 なあバトラよ、少し改心するから今回。そしたらさ、もうちょっとマシな殺し方に変えてやるからよ。誰をどの順でどんな風に殺すか、お前の希望も聞いてやるからよ。楽しいぜ、人の命をもてあそぶってのはよ。お前なら考えつくよ。エンジェをもっともっとクズ肉にしてやる方法をよ。来いよバトラー、南條殺し暴いてみろ。
The 18th person X has been defeated, but I won't give in. I'll stop that witch's breathing cold. In the end of the third game, it was announced in red that survivors at this point in time, Battler, Ava, Jessica, and Nanja were all uninvolved with Nanja's murder. And it was proclaimed that he was also murdered directly by someone before his eyes. All other people had the strongest possible alibi by having their deaths proclaimed in red. I'll break through this without using the 18th person X. Think. Don't stop thinking. I honestly don't have a... Her red doesn't only blind me, it's supposed to be her weak point. I've got to somehow use it against her. That's right. There's still a gap. Is someone who's supposedly dead not actually dead? Yeah, this way I can break through it. This way Beatrice's Legend of the Witch is finished.
確かに他の連中は死亡だったろうさ。だが赤で死亡を宣言されたのは南條先生が死んだ瞬間ではない。厳密に言えば南條先生の死体が見つかった後の俺とエヴァの戦いにおいてだ。つまり南條先生を殺した時点では生きていた何者かがエヴァの死亡宣言までの間に死亡していれば、そのつまりはこういうことさ。エヴァの死亡宣言で初めて死亡とされた人物の中に犯人がいて、その人物は最初うまいこと死んだふりをして俺たちをやり過ごした。そして赤での死亡宣言がないまま俺たちには死んだと思い込ませた。そして南條先生を殺し、その後に何かの理由で死んだ。そしてその後にエヴァが赤で死亡宣言を出す。以上の仮説でも南條先生の事件は説明できる。
When he forcefully asked that question, there's a terrible sound that could only be likened to that of a compressor. A blue stake that was as thick as long appeared from under the earth and skewered the Golden Witch, Beato, pulling her up into the air. That. Ugly tearing sounds rang out, and each time a blue stake or wedge would appear and pierce Beatrice's body. When that finally ended, her tragic form was exposed there, pincushion, by more than 10 stakes and wedges all over her body, and dripping with blood, dangling and crucified. My girl! She kind of looks like the Wicked Witch of the... whenever one gets smashed by the house with her little feet kind of hanging out. There was none of the dignity of the brutal witch who had been sneered at the honor of the dead and toyed with and killed hundreds of the living. The rain, which had started falling at some point, quietly tormented and crucified the witch. As Battler heaved with his breathing, he waited for some kind of answer from the Golden Witch. Although it wasn't long, it took the witch a bit of time to show any sense of life. I mean, it does look a bit painful. I don't think that would be a fun way to die. Even as he said that, it seemed Battler had lost his momentum at this extremely pathetic sight. Even if it was an enemy, he couldn't look straight at the woman exposed in such a brutal fashion. But even so, unless he destroyed Beatrice, this battle wouldn't end.
Battler, 頼むよ.
Huh? Beato let out a sob?
言ってよ。すげえ。
いてよ。終わらせて。
I mean, based on the stories, the backstory she's told us, which she was like royalty almost, it seemed like at one point, but so I don't know what her life was like as a child. Like it seems like she was rich, but you never know like what things she could have gone through. But just the stuff with like Kinzo alone, where he like imprisoned her, if that is true, not like it's pretty horrible.
これでもまだ死ねねえんだよ。こんなに痛えのにまだ死ねねえんだよ。
So he has to actually deny.
何を求めやがる。
終わらせて。この苦痛から解放して。
Beato's expression was soaked with blood and tears. Battler certainly had been tricked by her at one point, so he was probably able to suspect that her expression, that even her tears were an act. However, Battler believed in those tears. After all, those tears had been had the red truth mixed in with them.
どうすりゃいい？どうすればお前の痛みを終わらせられる？
今からすべてを、それが笑わぬ心臓。
心臓。
して
ベアト。
殺してもう死なせて。
Were those tears from pain and torment? Or else, either way, that pathetic expression was painful for Battler to look at, even after burning with such anger.
早くヘンゼのところに
Well, what's gonna stop him?
帰ってあげ。
帰るためじゃない。お前の痛みを止めるために。お前の願いを聞く。
ありがとう、バトラー。
In her last breaths, Beato summoned up all her remaining strength, and managed to close both of her hands into fists. A red light began to gather in those fists. Then she lifted her arms, as though appealing to the heavens for something.
バトラーなら殺せるから、私の心臓を潰して貫いてね。
The red light around both of her arms began to gradually strengthen. She gonna give him the actual answers?
おね。
After saying that much, her face tilted to the side a bit. Then her right arm lost its light and flopped down. But her left arm alone did not lose its light, and remained held out towards the heavens. Then before Battler's eyes, another Beato appeared with a faint form, transparent like a curtain. The crucified Beato had already lost consciousness. However, the newly appeared faint Beato looked at me, her eyes expressionless, and spoke.
後ろ宮バトル、今から私が。
Oh?
それで
そしてたった今、この島にはあなた以外、誰もいません。 この島で生きているのは、島の外の存在は、一切干渉できません。
I understand. This is the last mystery Beatrice will be able to make as a witch. She's trying to offer it to me, entreating me to solve this final mystery and kill her.
来いよ。お前の最後の謎。俺が受け取ってやる。
この島に。そしてもちろん。なのに私は今ここにいて。これからあなたを殺します。
南條先生殺しの謎の強化版ってわけか。それで。
私は誰？
You are me, right? They're the same person?
それが。
Or maybe his real... Then Beatrice slowly approached me and still expressionless held me. Yeah, I get it, Beato. I'll kill you, don't worry. And I slowly held her head. Then, I, as a piece, left the game board. Okay. Scattered on a large bed were cute jelly beans of various colors, and chocolate shaped like ohajiki pieces. I don't know what those are. The fork was stuck into a shortcake peeling out of a gift box, and there were decanters with drinks of various colors lined up on the side table. But the color of the partially filled drink that had been poured into a cup was venomous, matching none of the decanters. Someone had probably been playing around mixing various things together. That could be lots of fun if you don't mind the taste. On top of the fluffy bed were several colorful big pillows, like something from a dream. And on this bed, that looked like something out of a child's dream world, Burnt Costello lay face down, and Lambda Delta lay face up, clutching a pillow and relaxing.
今回はなかなかハラハラしたわね。ベアトがゲームやめるとか言い出して、かなーり焦ったわ。これだけのゲームを始めておいて、投げっぱなしで終えようとするなんて、失礼な。エンジェ、いい駒だったじゃない。とんずらしたベアトを引きずり戻して、ゲームを再開させてくれたわ。バトラをやる気にさせすぎちゃったのはさすがに参ったけどね。バトラは情に弱いって分かってたから。確かに。あいつ、敵であるベアトにも手加減しかねない雰囲気があったわね。前回の流れから、下手するとベアトに同情して、おかしな方向にゲームを流すかもしれないって危惧してたエンジェは、バトラがゴールを誤解した時に再誘導するための切り札よ。本当はもっとサポートさせて、それから切りたかったんだけどね。いきなり切らされたわ。仕込みに随分かかった駒なのに、もったいなかった。例の名乗っちゃダメルール、稼にしておいてよかった。あれを設けなかったら、兄弟タッグ大活躍で、ベアとはあっという間に飲み込まれて、ゲームエンドだったわ。一気に畳みかけるチャンスかと思ったんだけど、あんたのマークがきつくて、うまく活かせなかったわ。ああ、もったいない駒だった。当然でしょ。あんなずるい駒、とっととリタイアしてくれないと困るわ。まあ、結果的に
ゲーム中断を阻止する活躍をしてくれたし、それは私にとっても助かることだった。互いの利害が一致する活躍をしてくれた、という意味においては、本当に素晴らしい駒だったわよ。
バトラと同じで単純な子だったから、簡単に私の言いなりになってくれたわ。駒にするなら、バカか直情型よね。ああ、本当に惜しい駒だったわ。
その子も今じゃひき肉。ねえ、後で一緒にそれでハンバーグ作りましょうよ。あ、餃子の方が好きだっけ？妹味ってどんな味かしら？笑える。
あんた、そんな余裕でいいの？エンジェのおかげで、バトラは奮起。ベアと猛追し始め、今やだいぶ私が有利なゲーム展開だと思うけど。というかバトラ、今回でこれまでのほとんどの謎を解いちゃったんじゃない？
はぁ？とんでもない。バトラの青き真実なんて、ほとんど外れてるわよ。ベアとのぬるい赤なんて隙間だらけだもの。多少は知恵の回る子だったら、適当にへりくつ並べりゃ、簡単にすり抜けられるわ。ああ、本当にイライラしたわよ。私だったら、どれもこれも徹底的に赤で切り。
あら、そうだ、私はてっきり、あれらが正解だと思ってたわ。小型爆弾を飲み込ませてうんぬんは、さすがにどうかと思ったけど。
バトラの青き真実だって、全部が有効になってはいないわ。ベアとは第一のゲームにおいて、身元不明死体について、その身元をすべて保証する。とはっきり明言している。
Yeah, I feel like there
こ
were
れにより
holes
バ
in
ト
his
ラの
thing.
エヴァ、秀吉の密室殺人の犯人は、偽装死体を演じた何者か、という推理は破られてるのよ。次に、ボイラー室のカノンは事故死だったろうとしてるけど、自分の胸に杭が突き刺さっちゃう事故って何よ。ばっかじゃない？私が赤き宝刀とやらで切ってやるわよ。カノンは事故死ではない。その次の、客間での源氏たち3人の殺人の、時計回りに同時に射殺して死に合ったとかいう。
It's honestly like in the
反撃殺
office
人の
where
滑
they're
稽
all
だわ。
pointing the guns at each other.
源氏、熊沢、南條は殺人者ではない。最後の、夏日殺しのトラ
That
ップ
one was
X もバ
probably
カ
the
バカしいわ。
silliest to me, the trap.
夏日を射殺したのはトラップじゃなく、ちゃんと銃を構えて引き金を引いて、しっかり射殺したのよ。ご愁傷様。
あんた、ダメよ。そんなこと赤で言っちゃ。あの子、夏日の銃弾を魔法で跳ね返して殺したってことにしてるんだから。
あらあら、いけない。そうだったわね。第2のゲームの青き真実だって甘すぎよ。礼拝堂での6人の殺害時、犯人は礼拝堂内にいたわ。あいつ、何でもかんでもトラップ X で説明しようとするわよね。トラップ X って何よ。変なミステリー小説のお約束？使用人室で南條と熊沢が殺された事件のカノンの名前を世襲したとかいうのも滑稽だわ。カノンの名を名乗ることができるのは本人のみ。異なる人間が名乗ることはできない。夏日の部屋のローザからマスターキーを借りたという推理もダメダメ。ローザがマスターキーを管理して以降、それらすべては、一度たりとも彼女の手を離れていない。夏日の部屋を開錠した時に、バトラに貸し出した際を除いてね。 まだまだ続くけど、ざっと軽く見てもこんな感じかしら。
軽くも何も、あんた第1と第2のゲームにおけるバトラの青き真実。あらあら、なんてこと。バトラがそれを聞いたらそっとしちゃうわ
ね。ベアとは全然追い詰められてなんかいないのよ。あの子やっぱりなかなかの役者だわ。きっと今回のゲームでは一見追い詰められたふりをしてみせて、次のゲームあたりでバサーッと赤で一刀両断にしてバトラをびっくり仰天させる作戦でしょうよ。それできっとまた大笑いしながら言うんだわ。魔女はピンチになんかなりませんって。
じゃあ、あのベアとの追い詰められたみたいな悲壮感は全部演技なの？
そうに決まってるじゃない。あいつ本当に大女優よね。全然追い詰められてなんかいないのに、最終回顔負けのクライマックス感だったわ。今年の助演女優賞はあいつに決定ね。ああ、もちろん主演は私だけど、ベルンでもいいわよ。
私を殺してみたいなことを言って最後に大きな謎を出したわよ。それを解かれたらベアとは今度こそおしまいの背水の陣じゃないの？
やだ、ベルンまで騙されてるの？あんなの背水の陣でもなんでもない。ベアとはね、まだまだどぎつい奥の手を温存してるわ。最後の謎を出すために両腕を突き出した時、右腕だけ下ろしたの気づいてた？
ああ、そういえばあれはそういう意味だったわけ。
そういうわけ。あの子はまだまだ奥の手を残してる。そして何も謎は解かれちゃいない。それをまるで全て完歩されて次回最終回みたいなテンションにしちゃうなんて。つくづくあの子は演技の天才よ。ああ、早くバトラをどん底に叩き落とすところが見てやりたいわ。あの子前回のゲームの北風と太陽作戦ですっかり味を占めちゃったんじゃない？バトラきっとまたベアトに同情してコロッと引っかかるわよ。女の涙は一粒で男を騙せるからね。実に安上がりでお得よね。
バトラ、またその手に引っかかっちゃうかしら。二度と同情しないように私もバトラを焚きつけないと。当分はエンジェのひき肉で焚きつけられそうだけどね。
エンジェ味のハンバーグでパワーアップもちろんこっちも負けないわよ。ここからバトラと拮抗するくらいに盛り返せるようベアトを徹底的にサポートするもの。負けないわよベアトは。負けたら素敵な罰ゲームがあるわよってきっちり脅してるもん。
あんたの罰ゲーム本気でシャレにならないから少し加減した方がいいわよ。
ベルに次に罰ゲームをできるときはこうしようって決めてるのがあるの。聞きたい聞きた
嫌よ。
いもう聞いてよ。あのねベルを素敵なお城に閉じ込めてあげるの。そのお城は真っ白な純白の城壁に囲まれていて、高さは10メートルあるの。魔法とズルは禁止。とても飛び越せないわよね。
14億4000万竜兵。話のうちが読めたからもういいわよ。
そこをね、毎日一粒ずつの宝石で埋めていくの。それで城壁いっぱいに溜まるまでベルンを閉じ込めて、 その宝石で埋め殺すの。素敵なロマンチックな罰ゲームでしょ。
What a
一
weirdo.
辺を5倍にしていいから、高さを10分の1にしてくれたら、今から閉じ込めてもいいわよ。
ほんと ?36 億竜兵になるわよ。罰ゲームが倍以上の期間になるわよ。そんなにも長い間、虜になってくれるのね。ベルン大好き。愛してる。
Lambda Delta playfully approached Burton Castell, who yawned, looking bored, as she touched the bottom of Lambda Delta's chin, as though cuddling a cat.
ベルンはバトラの勝利にかけてて、私は二人が永遠に引き分けになる。それで、誰かベアとの勝利にはかけてないの？
かけないわよ。勝率ゼロだもん。
奇跡の魔女に奇跡ゼロって言われるのも本当にお気の毒。私もかけないけどね。
Oh, I need to try this executing thing. Let me see. Totally forgot. Oh, wait. I guess maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'll have to try it once I get out of this.
絶対。
絶対の魔女に、絶対ダメって言われるのもお気の毒ね。
Usually for them, they giggle together.
このゲーム、どういう決着に終わるかしら。
さすがに、それだけは読めないわ。だから楽しいわけだし。
もう逃げも中断も許さない。絶対にゲームを続けさせる。逃がす。これからどんな風に展開していくのか、想像。絶対にありえない決着の仕方だけはわかるわ。
ベアトが勝って終わることだけはないわね。
だって、私もベルンも、どっちもベアトの勝利にかけてないんだもん。つまり、ベアトが勝ちそうになったら、私たち二大魔女を敵に回すことになる。
そういうことね。私たちの力が最も均衡するのは、引き分けとバトラ有利の中間で均衡している場合のみ。ベアト有利に傾きすぎれば、私たちは共に同じベクトルに団結して、ベアトを引きずり戻す。
つまり、ベアト優勢になった瞬間、私たち二人をまとめて敵に回すってことよ。ベルンと共闘、楽しい。
ありがとう。でも、コンペイ島のお風呂には一緒に入らないわよ。
コンペイ島のシャワーを浴びながら、とろけたマシュマロを塗りたくってあげるのに。
気の毒に、あの子は、私と遊ぶためにラムダが捕まえてきた生きたおもちゃ。お人形だわ。
私、お人形遊びは上手なの。ほんと上手に遊べるのよ。飽きずに一つのおもちゃで何百年も遊べるのが自慢なの。
ある時は味方し、ある時は敵対し、永遠にもてあそび続ける。かわいそうにね。あの子はもう、私たちのお人形。
そういうことよ。私たち二人の望む末路しか用意されてない。つまり、私によって永遠に引き分けが繰り返されるか、ベルンによってベアトが敗北して滅ぼされるか、でしか終わらないと断言できる。ベアトが勝って終わる
I
よう
wonder
な
if
こ
there's a
とは。
way Beato could win and Battler to win. That's kind of how I see.
奇跡の魔女として宣言するわ。
なら私は、絶対の魔女として宣言するわ。ベアトは絶対に勝利できない。そして奇跡は、
絶対に怒らない。
It wasn't in red. Okay, so let's go to the tea party thing. Because I think someone said there was an execution thing here that I can do. System. Maybe it's in the music box thing? Oh, so it's literally just a music box. Okay. Oh, this part. Okay, here we go. Okay. Weapon of the Sisters Cavalry, which serves as Pendragon. Quiet often teased that she was loved by everyone. However, her luck was always bad. She met a tragic end against a black witch. She was cutting-edge woman. Unique Sisters Cavalry, which served to honor guards. Fire of support. She shot not to kill, but to protect her allies. Oh, I could probably execute her. I think I've talked about her. Here we go. Oh. Who is this? Trumpet is her specialty. Everyone skips to her lively tune. Interesting. Can we... No, we can't do that. Execute. I doubt we can execute. So that's interesting. There's a whole other one that we didn't really know about. Oh, tips. Okay. Worlds of different fates and circumstances are called fragments, and witches capable of crossing the ocean of endless fragments are called voyagers. It is also a title used to indicate high-order witch, and witches limited to their own territories cannot compare to their power. However, perhaps because they don't have well-defined territories of their own, their values are ever-changing, and it's easy for their souls to become vague and insubstantial. It isn't uncommon for this to result in them turning into scraps of seaweed into the fragment ocean, fading away. Their voyage has no destination, and you might even say they're on a journey to escape a destination. Witches of an even higher order of voyagers are often called creators. This is where creators are sacred, belonging to those who can create one out of a sea of nothingness. They can give birth to one from zero and give birth to endless, and then return it to zero again in a flash. They are free from restrictions, and voyagers often even call them gods. In that sense, perhaps the Witch of Origins Maria is a chosen girl, fated to become a creator. All voyagers that the destination of their own journeys is becoming a creator. As to why they would fear advancing to the status of a higher order being, only they themselves can comprehend the answer. Okay. Okay, so that was 1988. Okay. Went to hell embraced by the witch, but to the witch that hell was a golden land. Let's see if I can kill Beatrice. However, she holds a magical power that is a source of endless evolution in the sea. However, that power is meaninless. No matter how many times you multiply something in the sea of zero, will never be more than zero. However, she was blessed by the miracle that gave birth to one in that sea. Her world became endless. When she was joined with the Witches of Origins through marriage sorcery, their magical compendium gained an endless span, as well as endless power. However, the one she gave birth to, which is Sakataro, will one day surpass even the heavens. She is literally protected. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm going to end there. I have to download the answers thing. So we will, be getting to that somewhat soon. And I'm excited to go into that. Thanks for following this for the questions arc, guys. I appreciate it.